I'm Thomas Byrne. I'm General Manager and responsible for the product development and engineering that happens for nCino from an EMEA business perspective. Like many industries, banking and financial institutions, they've gone through a little bit of a journey over the last 20, 30 years. And I think sort of the rise in digital lending, being driven partly by customer expectations and sort of what they're seeing in, various other industries and aspects of their personal lives of how they interact with the digital world. That's starting to reshape the way that, the propositions need to come to market and what the consumer expectations are. But I also think this rise in digital lending is also opening up, various opportunities for banks and financial institutions out there to take advantage of. Now that they're no longer encumbered by it all being, in a physical location around a certain process, we're starting to see the rise of sort of ecosystem players and the ability for, banks, financial institutions to set themselves up as sort of trusted advisors of consumers, of businesses, as they're sort of starting to engage with those institutions. And what that means in tangible, practical terms is it's really exciting to see we can move beyond just providing point finance and solving, a very specific niche problem, but actually expanding that out into what is actually happening in this consumer, in this business's life cycle, and how do we start to full service scale them and, start to help them on their home buying journey beyond just providing finance, but starting to interface with other players and start to really give a unified experience around what is the human problems and not just what the bank or the financial institution is trying to provide from their very narrow point of view. So I think it's really exciting to see where we're going. And, the more that we get digital, the more that these types of opportunities are going to open up, which should be to the benefit of the bank and the consumer. There's definitely that ecosystem play that we're starting to see more of, and we're starting to see partnerships where you can start to full service the customer need as opposed to, very specific products and very specific and limited initiatives that you're able to sort of engage with the customer on. I think sort of above and beyond that, with the rise of some of these native digital lenders, I think the opportunity to provide, more tailored experiences around sort of personal financial management. I think before, the relationship caricatured between financial institutions and consumers tended to be one of, very transactional. But I think we're now starting to see in these digital experiences the ability for banks and financial institutions to be a virtual personal financial management. And you're seeing that in mixing bank account provisioning with sort of investment advice and being able to move them into where can you see the most return for your investment, and starting to move more into that space as opposed to being a very transactional, I just need a current account, I just need to make a payment type engagement. But now you're opening it up to, ability to start to really be the trusted advisor for the consumer. And I think alongside that, these digital native lenders have also pushed further into the areas of how do we create, user experiences that really resonate with customers. And we're starting to see that challenge taken up by many lenders and sort of push us into that space of how do we make sure that the consumer is really engaged in a way that is going to get them to the right financial outcomes, as opposed to just trying to get through a process as quickly as possible. It's definitely an evolving space, especially when you start to think about how the regulation's evolving and that sort of what is permitted, what's not permitted. I think what we're starting to see is, the classic way that a lot of these financial institutions have started engaging with this is through that chatbot interface and, helping, and it shouldn't be underestimated, helping consumers or businesses navigate the complexities of all of the service offerings that a financial institution might have, by navigating them to the right place and engaging with them on those types of service topics. I think what's more exciting beyond sort of that first initial wave of AI that we're seeing embedded in these institutions is how can AI and machine learning start to augment types of these experiences. So as I mentioned earlier, how can it start to be, flashing up, depending on where you're at in your financial journey, hey, the right type of product for you right now, given your circumstances, would look like X because you would get a return of Y as opposed to what you're getting today. So I think we can start to see these augmented journeys within these digital experiences, highlighting to the consumers or the end customer where the best opportunity for them is based off of their circumstances, which AI is perfectly poised to do and flash that up. And then on the internal colleague side, we spend a lot of time working with commercial banking clients, and we've seen a lot of excitement around being able to augment the journeys that the colleagues are taking from the internal side, whether that's pre-preparing credit papers, whether that's highlighting areas of risk or opportunity for the bankers to then start to do, and how can we make those humans that work in the bank more efficient so they can ultimately service their customers better with better insights and in a quicker response time, which is something that we've been trialing and feel really excited and seeing coming to market this year. It's a really interesting development that we've seen over the last few years as it's sort of taken off. I think it all speaks to that same common thread that's through many of these topics of it's just consumer expectations. And, we've moved away from the customer having to meet the bank where they're at, and now the bank's having to meet the customer where they're at and where sort of, the opportunity for the bank is, if we talk about it frankly, but also from a customer perspective, I want the convenience of being able to get access to credit from where I need it and not have to have those disjointed digital journeys that really is frustrating to many consumers. And I think we've all had the experience of having to navigate through different types of areas to get to the outcome that we want. So I think when we start to think about embedded lending and how that's going to change the landscape, I think it's just going to drive the rise of digitization, which we've spoken about, but the rise of having the APIs and having the technical infrastructure that allows you to meet the customer exactly where they're at, rather than relying on them coming through all of your channels, which should lead to greater opportunities and revenue opportunities on the financial side. But also from a consumer perspective, it should be great news too, because I now have much more streamlined journeys. I now get much more options when I'm working through my stuff, and I can start to choose the right product for me in the way that makes sense where I need it with convenience and speed.